Hey, what's up, guys? Chaplain Brooks. Today's Good Friday. Yesterday was Maundy Thursday, and we observed so far this week Christ kind of coming into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. Followed that up with statements about how the church as an organization, the church as an institution, had failed everybody around them, and that ticked off the priests, and they began to work behind the scenes to put an end, what they believed, put an end to this madness, this frustration with Christ. And so made a deal with one of Jesus' disciples, Judas Iscariot, on an inside job, to turn Jesus over in a way that kept their public image intact, and in spite of all of that, even being betrayed by somebody that was in his inner circle, Christ still took the pacifist route and chose not to fight, chose instead to call his betrayer his friend, and advised against fighting back when one of the disciples drew a sword and cut off one of the high priests, the ear off of one of the high priest's slaves, it said. So they take him into custody and send him before the courts, and it's a kangaroo court at the end of the day. It's pretty well fixed, set up to quell any kind of potential disturbances to public order and discipline. And so but Christ essentially just kind of stood there and took it. And I want to rewind the clock just a day or so, because before he gets turned over to the authorities, he's in the garden and he's praying, and he knew what his mission was. But there's this really unique, for somebody that's so convicted about their mission, there's this really unique interaction that Christ has with God, where he's praying and he's just so full of doubt, or just asking, God, is there any other way to go about this? And I think about that interaction, and I think that prayer. I heard somebody say one time that prayer is just grieving. And I wonder what Christ was grieving at that time. And I don't think that as convicted as he was about what he had to do, that he was grieving what he was going to have to do as much as it is why he was having to do it. When you think of, all the people that he was really trying to just kind of direct in a better direction, advise them on how to live more fully and wholly. I imagine there were thoughts in his mind like, why can we not just, continue working to, assure these people that they can do this work, and that they can step in line, and they can be a part of the design, God has for us. Maybe he also grieved having to suffer on a cross and die. That wouldn't be fun. But I also know that you can't be fully God and fully human like we believe in Christ. Christ is, if he didn't also suffer. And but the way he handled that was what made him God. And that doubt that he had in the garden while he was praying carried over just about until his last breath on the cross, when he said, God, why have you forsaken me? Like, just so much doubt. But that doesn't, like, doubt isn't sin. And doubt is often a vehicle for allowing the story to continue, right? It allows us to be proven wrong. It allows us to be affirmed whenever our doubts are legitimate. And sometimes our doubts are legitimate and we're still proven wrong. One of the things that, Christ did not do that we do is carry like this burden of having to feel like he had all the answers, right? He never, I don't think there's any evidence that he had all the answers about what he was going to be going through if he carried that doubt. And but for some reason, our egos get in the way, or our pride gets in the way, or our fears get in the way, and we convince ourselves that we do have to have all the answers. And yeah, I know I'm a minister saying this to you, but pastors, ministers, chaplains, they're probably the worst for this, right? But that's not a burden for us to carry to begin with. In church tradition, we carry out our observations of Good Friday with something called a Tenebrea service. Tenebrea service is just a collective reading of Christ's crucifixion and suffering. One of the key characteristics of a Tenebrea service is that the story remains unfinished, that we don't read it to its conclusion at Easter or anything like that. And it tends to end with silence, which is incredibly powerful. If you've never been a part of a Tenebrea service, probably wouldn't hurt to do a little bit of reading about what it's like before you jump into that experience. But it's not uncommon for a lot of people to come out and say, that was the most impactful service I've ever been a part of. Because it, in our collective reading and our collective observation of that suffering and death of Christ, we tend to develop a little bit of empathy for what it was that he went through. If you find yourself having the opportunity to engage in that, then do it. And then be mindful of how you don't have to have a clear understanding of the end of the story to continue like enjoying the journey. I know that Easter's in a couple of days, and that's sort of the climax of this Holy Week. But man, there's a whole lot that happens between Good Friday and Easter Sunday that we observed in things like our Apostles' Creed and stuff, that nobody has ever really witnessed to, right? Like it's all done in silence, and it's all done not in this world. And so I look forward to kind of unpacking that with you guys tomorrow, and then on Easter. So yeah, you guys take care and have a good evening.